Your neighbor is going to walk past your backyard this August and ask what you did differently. Not because you worked harder than that, not because you spent more money, because you made one smart decision this May that they didn't. 7 vegetables, 1 month, a garden so loaded that people lean over your fence just to look. These crops don't make you wait. They grow fast, produce hard, and put real food on your table before summer is halfway done. Miss May, and that window closes. The growing season doesn't wait. Let's go. Most home gardeners have been planting too late every single season and wondering why their harvest never catches up to summer. You buy transplants in June, you get them in the ground in July. And by the time anything is worth picking, August is already winding down and the first cool nights are creeping back in. That stops right now. The difference between a garden that feeds you all summer and one that almost does comes down to what you plant in May. Here's exactly what to get in the ground. Plant 1. Bush beans. Most people treat beans like an afterthought, something you toss in after the real vegetables are already planted. Those people are eating beans in September, if at all. Plant bush beans in May, and you are harvesting in 50 days, not the end of summer, not eventually. 50 days, a full meal on your table before most gardeners have seen their first flower on anything else. Dense, upright plants, knee-high, loaded with smooth, firm pods in deep forest green, clustering so thick along every stem you can barely see the leaves beneath them. No trellis, no staking. Bush beans hold themselves up and produce heavily without asking anything from you. Phaseolus vulgaris grows in USDA zones 3 through 10. Direct sow in May when soil hits 60 FF. Germination in 8 to 10 days. One 10-foot row yields 8 to 12 pounds of fresh beans. Sow a second row 3 weeks later, and you extend your harvest straight through mid-August without interruption. Here's what most gardening content never tells you. Beans fix their own nitrogen from the air through root bacteria, then deposit it back into your soil when the season ends. You're not just growing food, you're improving your soil for every plant that comes after. Professional market gardeners call beans a double crop for exactly this reason. Food first, fertility second. Plant 2. Cucumbers. There is a moment in mid-July that every serious vegetable gardener knows. You walk out in the morning, coffee still in hand, and hanging from the vine is a cucumber so perfect you just stand there for a second before you pick it. That moment is available to you this summer. But only if you plant in May. Wide, bold leaves, vines climbing, and underneath all of that growth, cucumbers forming in clusters. Deep glossy green, cool to the touch even on a hot afternoon, the kind of fresh a grocery store cucumber sealed in plastic wrap has never once delivered, and never will. Cucumis sativus thrives in USDA zones 4 through 11. Start seeds indoors 2 to 3 weeks before your last frost, or direct sow into warm soil once temperatures hold above 65 SFE. One healthy vine yields 10 to 20 cucumbers per season. Bush varieties like Space Master work in containers. Vining types like Marketmore 76 produce longer and more prolifically on a simple trellis. Here's what most gardening videos never tell you. Growing vertically instead of letting vines sprawl increases your yield by up to 40%. Not marginally more, 40%. Fruit that hangs freely develops straighter, faster, with better skin quality than fruit sitting on soil collecting moisture and inviting rot. A $5 cattle panel zip-tied to 2 wooden stakes is the single highest return investment you can make in a May garden. 1 afternoon of setup, 40% more food all season. One more thing. Cucumbers are one of the fastest plants to signal when they need water, and one of the fastest to recover when you provide it. Leaves looking dull in the afternoon heat are telling you something. Water at the base, never overhead, always in the morning. Wet foliage sitting through a cool night is the primary entry point for powdery mildew, the one issue that ends cucumber seasons early while gardeners never connect the cause to the timing. Pick consistently. A cucumber left past its peak signals the plant to slow down and redirect energy towards seed development instead of new fruit. The more you harvest, the more it produces. Miss 4 or 5 days and output drops noticeably. Stay on top of it, and that vine hands you food every single day. Have you ever had a cucumber plant just stop producing mid-summer without knowing why? Drop your state in the comments. The answer is almost always one of 2 things, and both are completely fixable. Plant 3. Radishes. This is the one vegetable on this list that will make you feel like you actually know what you're doing. Not in August, not at the end of the season, in 3 weeks. 21 days from the moment that seed touches soil, you are pulling a radish out of the ground with your own hand. No other vegetable on this planet closes that loop faster. Clean, smooth, skin so deeply saturated, crimson red, bright scarlet, or in the case of French breakfast varieties, a vivid two-toned red and white that it almost looks artificial. You pull it, rinse it, slice it, pure white inside, dense, crisp, snapping clean when you bite through it. That crunch does not exist in a bag of radishes sitting in a refrigerated truck for 4 days crossing 3 state lines to reach your grocery store. Raphanus sativus grows in USDA zones 2 through 10. Virtually every gardener watching this can grow radishes this May without a single climate concern. Direct sow 1/2 inch deep, 1 inch apart, full sun to partial shade. Germination in 4 to 6 days. Harvest in 22 days for Cherry Belle, 30 days for Champion and French Breakfast. Thin to 2 inches apart once they emerge. Those thinned seedlings go straight into a salad. Nothing wasted. Here's what most gardening content never tells you. Radishes are one of the most effective companion plants in the vegetable garden, and almost nobody uses them that way. Planted alongside carrots, they break up compacted soil and create channels that help carrot roots push downward properly. Planted near cucumbers and squash, they actively repel cucumber beetles and squash vine borers through volatile compounds released from their root systems. You are not just growing a vegetable, you are running a biological protection program for every plant around it. Sow a new row every 10 days through early June. Not 40 radishes overwhelming you in 1 week, a steady, manageable supply for 6 straight weeks. 1 packet of seeds, 10 minutes of planting across 3 sessions, a rotating crop that never stops. Do not let radishes sit past their harvest window. A radish that goes too long becomes pithy, hollow, aggressively bitter. Set a reminder from the day you sow. 3 weeks. Pull them, eat them, sow again. Plant 4. Summer squash. There is a running joke among vegetable gardeners. You plant 1 zucchini in May. By July, you are leaving bags of zucchini on your neighbor's doorsteps, ringing the bell and running before they answer. That joke exists because it is completely, documentably, gloriously true. No other vegetable in the May garden produces with the relentless, almost aggressive generosity of summer squash. Plant 1. Feed a family, possibly feed the entire street. Enormous paddle-shaped leaves spreading 3 feet in every direction, thick stems pushing upward with genuine force, and emerging from the base of every female flower, bright, firm, perfectly formed squash in deep forest green, pale lime, vivid yellow, or creamy white depending on your variety. The flowers themselves are edible, large and golden and dramatic, the kind of thing restaurants charge $14 for on an appetizer plate. You will have more than you know what to do with, straight from your own backyard. Cucurbita pepo grows in USDA zones 3 through 10. Direct sow 1 inch deep in May, once soil hits 60 SF, or transplant starts grown indoors 2 to 3 weeks earlier. Plant 2 to 3 seeds per hill, thin to the strongest single plant once true leaves emerge. First harvest in 45 to 55 days depending on variety. Patio Star and Bush Baby are compact varieties built specifically for small spaces and containers without sacrificing yield. Black Beauty and Costata Romanesco are open-pollinated heirlooms that produce prolifically and develop richer flavor than most hybrid alternatives at big box stores. Here's what most gardening content never tells you about summer squash. The single biggest yield killer is not pests, not disease, and not poor soil. It is unpollinated flowers. Summer squash produces separate male and female flowers on the same plant. Male flowers open first, sometimes by a full week, before any female flowers appear. If pollinators are not present when those female flowers open, the tiny squash forming behind the flower base simply shrivels and drops. Your plant looks healthy, your plant is flowering, and you are getting nothing. The fix takes 30 seconds. When you see both male and female flowers open simultaneously, take a small paintbrush or cotton swab, collect pollen from the center of a male flower, and transfer it directly to the center of the female flower. Done. That squash will be ready to harvest in 4 to 6 days. Harvest at 6 to 8 inches, not 10, not 12, 6 to 8. A squash left past that size triggers the same response as an unharvested cucumber. The plant reads it as mission accomplished and dramatically reduces new fruit production. Pick young, pick consistently, and that plant produces from June straight through the first frost without slowing down. Plant 5. Carrots. Most people have tried to grow carrots once, had something go wrong underground they never fully understood, and quietly decided carrots were better left to the professionals. Forked roots, stunted stubs, perfectly healthy green tops hiding absolutely nothing worth eating beneath the soil. That is not a gardening failure. That is a soil information problem. And once you understand what carrots actually need, you will never have that experience again. Pulling a carrot in late July that you grew yourself from seed, not the blunt, pale, slightly rubbery compromise in a plastic bag under fluorescent grocery store lighting. A real carrot. Tapered, smooth, deeply pigmented. Burnt orange so saturated it almost glows. Or in the case of cosmic purple, a dramatic deep violet exterior giving way to a bright orange core when you slice through it. Sweet in a way a stored carrot cannot replicate, because the sugars in a garden-fresh carrot begin converting to starch the moment it leaves the ground. What you pull and eat the same day is a genuinely different food than what traveled to reach you. Daucus carota grows in USDA zones 3 through 10. Direct sow 1/4 inch deep in May, once soil sits consistently above 50 SFE. Carrots do not transplant. Direct sowing is non-negotiable. Germination is slow, 10 to 21 days. Do not abandon the bed. They are coming. Harvest in 55 days for fast varieties like Napoli and Mokum, 75 days for storage types like Danvers 126 and Scarlet Nance. Thin to 3 inches apart once tops reach 2 inches tall. That step is not optional. Crowded carrots fork, twist, and produce exactly the gnarled roots that send people back to the grocery store. Here's what most gardening content never tells you. The enemy is not pests, it is not disease, it is compaction. Carrot roots follow the path of least resistance downward. The moment they hit a rock, a hard clay layer, a pocket of compacted subsoil, they fork around it. The fix costs nothing and takes 15 minutes. Work your soil 12 inches deep, not 6, 12, and incorporate coarse sand and mature compost through that entire depth. That one preparation step produces straight, well-formed roots consistently across every variety you plant. Alternatively, grow Chantenay or Danvers types, bred specifically for shorter, thicker development that handles heavier soils far more forgivingly than long, slender varieties. Keep the soil surface consistently moist until germination. A single dry crust forming over emerging seedlings in the first 2 weeks can physically prevent them from breaking through. A light covering of vermiculite over the seed row retains moisture at the surface and solves this problem before it starts. Plant 6. Arugula. High-end restaurants have been charging a premium for this vegetable on every salad menu in every major city for the last 2 decades. Chefs reach for it because nothing else delivers that flavor, peppery, sharp, slightly bitter, complex in a way that makes every other salad green taste like it's simply filling space on a plate. It costs you almost nothing to grow, germinates in 4 days, and is ready to harvest in 3 weeks. The restaurant is marking it up because you haven't been growing it yourself. That changes right now. Deep green, deeply lobed leaves with serrated edges, growing in a dense, lush carpet that looks almost wild in the best possible way. You don't harvest the whole plant, you take the outer leaves and leave the center growing. That single bed keeps producing for weeks on a continuous cut-and-come-again cycle, one of the highest yield per square foot crops in the entire May garden. A 12-inch container on an apartment balcony produces enough salad greens to replace every grocery store purchase from May straight through early July. Iruka vesicaria thrives in USDA zones 3 through 11, essentially every growing region in the country. Direct sow on the soil surface or barely covered at 1/8 of an inch. Arugula needs light to germinate, 4 to 7 days in soil temperatures between 45 and 65 SF. First harvest at 21 days for baby leaf, 40 days for full mature leaves. Sow a new row every 2 weeks through early June for continuous supply. Once temperatures push consistently above 75 SF Eve, arugula bolts, flower stalk, intensely bitter leaves, harvest window closed. Partial shade in warmer climates extends that window 2 to 3 weeks and keeps flavor at its best. Here's what most gardening content never tells you. The same peppery compounds that give arugula its distinctive flavor, glucosinolates, are the same compounds that make it a natural pest deterrent. Aphids, flea beetles, and cabbage worms that devastate other brassica crops actively avoid arugula. Interplant it between rows of more vulnerable crops, and you are creating a chemical buffer zone that works passively all season. No sprays, no interventions, no additional cost. Professional market gardeners use this strategy deliberately and consistently. Now you know exactly why. Harvest in the morning when leaves are crisp and fully hydrated. Cut outer leaves at the base with scissors, leaving the central growing point intact. Rinse immediately in cold water, fresh and crisp in a sealed container in your refrigerator for 5 full days. You are not buying salad mix this summer. You are walking outside and cutting it yourself. Plant 7. Beets. You walk out into your garden on a quiet evening in late July, the light going golden and low, the air finally cooling after a long hot day. You reach down and pull a beet from the ground with your bare hand, smooth, heavy, deeply pigmented, soil still clinging to it. You hold it for a moment before you do anything else. That is the moment this entire list pays off. Every seed you pressed into the ground this May, every row you watered, every decision you made, that moment right there. Upright, architectural, genuinely beautiful in a way most people don't expect from a root vegetable. Deep crimson stems rising from the soil, fanning outward into broad glossy leaves veined in the same rich red. This is not a plant you hide in the back of the bed. This is a plant you put where people can see it, ornamental and productive simultaneously. Two things most vegetables never manage to be at the same time. Beta vulgaris grows in USDA zones 2 through 10, one of the most cold-tolerant vegetables on this list. Direct sow ½ inch deep in May, 2 inches apart in rows 12 inches wide. Each beet seed is actually a cluster of 2 to 3 seeds fused together. Thinning is essential. Thin to one plant every 3 to 4 inches once seedlings reach 2 inches tall. Days to harvest run 50 to 70 days depending on variety. Detroit dark red, reliable, deeply pigmented, consistently sweet. Chioggia, an Italian heirloom that reveals dramatic candy stripe rings of alternating red and white when sliced crosswise. The kind of thing that stops people at a dinner table. Golden beets, milder, slightly sweeter, none of the pigmentation that stains cutting boards and fingertips. Here's what most gardening content never tells you. You are not growing one vegetable, you are growing 2. The greens, the leaves and stems above the soil, are entirely edible and nutritionally superior to the root itself. More iron, more calcium, more vitamin K than the beetroot by a significant margin. Sauté them in olive oil, with garlic exactly the way you would treat chard or spinach, because botanically, beets and chard are the same species. One plant, 2 harvests, 0 waste. Restaurants that serve both the root and the greens on the same plate are not being creative. They are being accurate about what the plant actually provides. Keep soil consistently moist from seed to harvest. Inconsistent watering produces tough, woody, cracked roots with a bitter edge that bears no resemblance to a properly grown beet. Consistent moisture produces roots that are dense, smooth, and sweet enough that people who claim to dislike beets change their position immediately after tasting one grown this way. Every plant on this list could theoretically go in the ground in June, some of them in July. So why does May matter so much? Because of what happens underground before you ever see anything happening above ground. Once you understand the biology, the urgency stops feeling like a sales pitch and starts feeling like what it actually is, a fact of plant science that does not negotiate with your schedule. In May, soil temperatures across most American growing zones sit between 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the precise biological window where root systems establish fastest, germination rates peak, and young transplants build the deep anchoring structure they need to survive summer heat. Every crop on this list has been biologically calibrated by thousands of years of cultivation to perform at its absolute best in exactly that range. Plant in that window, and roots have 6 to 8 full weeks to establish before peak summer heat arrives. 6 to 8 weeks of warm, but not brutal, moist, but not waterlogged, long day conditions that build resilience into every plant at its most critical stage. Miss that window. Plant in late June or July, and those same crops are trying to germinate, establish, and produce simultaneously in soil temperatures pushing 85 degrees or higher. Germination rates drop, transplant shock deepens. Cool season crops like arugula, radishes, and beets bolt almost immediately, rushing to flower and seed before their leaves ever reach a useful harvest size. Warm season crops like cucumbers and squash spend their first critical weeks fighting heat stress instead of building root mass. They survive, but surviving and thriving are not the same thing, and that gap shows up directly in your harvest weight, your harvest window, and your harvest quality. One more dimension almost nobody talks about: day length. In May, days are lengthening toward their peak. Plants that establish during lengthening days build larger leaf canopies, develop more robust photosynthetic capacity, and enter their productive fruiting phase with significantly more stored energy than plants establishing during the shortening days of late summer. You are not just racing the heat, you are capturing the light. And light, more than water, more than fertilizer, more than any amendment you can add to your soil, is the raw material your garden runs on. May is not a preference, it is a biological window with a closing date, and that window is open right now. Most gardening content gives you the list and stops there. Here is what most of it never tells you. The plants are not the hard part. The decisions you make around the plants, before you sow, while they are growing, and after the season ends, determine whether everything on this list performs at its ceiling or limps along at half capacity. 3 rules. Every serious vegetable gardener operates by all 3. Most beginners never hear any of them. Rule 1. Fix your soil before you plant anything. Poor soil structure kills more May vegetable gardens than drought, pests, and neglect combined. Not poor fertility, poor structure. Fertility is what your soil contains. Structure is how your soil behaves, how it drains, how it holds air, how easily roots push through it without hitting resistance. Before you sow a single seed, dig a hole 1 foot deep and fill it with water. If that water has not fully drained within 1 hour, you have a drainage problem that will quietly undermine every plant on this list regardless of how well you do everything else. Fix it with coarse sand and mature compost worked deeply into your existing soil, or build a raised bed above the problem entirely. Do it once, do it correctly, it permanently changes what your soil can support for every season that follows. Rule 2. Water at the base and water in the morning, every time, without exception. Overhead watering in the evening is the single most common and most destructive habit in the home vegetable garden. Wet foliage sitting through a cool night is the primary entry point for fungal disease across every crop on this list. Powdery mildew on cucumbers, leaf spot on beets, damping off in seedling arugula and carrot rows. The fix costs nothing and takes no additional time. Point your hose at the soil, not the leaves. Water early enough that any incidental splash dries completely before temperatures drop in the evening. That one adjustment eliminates the most common disease pressure your May garden will face before it ever starts. Rule 3. Harvest consistently or watch your yield collapse. Every warm season crop on this list, cucumbers, squash, beans, operates on a biological directive to produce seeds and complete its reproductive cycle. The moment you leave a fruit past its peak harvest window, the plant reads that as mission accomplished. It downregulates new flower and fruit production and redirects energy toward the seeds inside the fruit you left behind. You do not get more by waiting, you get less. Harvest young, harvest consistently, harvest on a schedule, every 2 days for squash and cucumbers at peak season, and those plants produce continuously from June straight through the first frost without slowing down. 7 vegetables in, and I want to say something to you directly. If you have made it this far, you are not a casual scroller. You are not someone who watches half a gardening video and moves on. You are someone who wants a garden that produces real food in real quantities on a real timeline, and you are willing to go deep enough to understand why things work, not just what to do. That is exactly the kind of gardener this channel was built for. And that is exactly what we deliver every single week. Subscribe right now if you haven't already. Hit the bell, because the algorithm does not care how much you enjoyed this video. It will not automatically send you the next one unless you tell it to. 3 seconds, that's all it takes. And it means the next time there is a planting window this important, this specific, this time sensitive, you find out before it closes, not after. The gardeners who subscribed at the beginning of this video are already ahead. The ones who subscribe right now are still ahead. The ones who find this channel 5 months from now will wish they had been here today. Don't be that person. You have already invested the time. Finish the decision. Subscribe, hit the bell. Let's get to work. Before you go, one quick thing. Which vegetable from this list are you putting in the ground first this May? And where are you growing? What zone or state? Drop it in the comments. I read every single comment. I respond to as many as I can. And what you tell me directly shapes what I dig into next. May is yours. Get your hands dirty. Go plant something.